All right, so hi there. I am going to play around with GameMaker today, and um, this is not a tutorial like an exhaustive tutorial. I really just want to show a few key parts of it that I think will help you get started. I actually am gonna show you stuff that I saw in a tutorial myself, so that's where I've gotten some of these assets and things like that. There are plenty of really great tutorials on the Game Maker website at Yo-Yo Games, and if you see here on the welcome screen, you see all the different resources scrolling by the top. Definitely take advantage of those. You can only get better the more you learn. But I thought, I have some time today, so I'm going to maybe do a quick tour and show you what there is to see. So let me So bring up another project that I have open. But so this is the project that I'm going to be making here. It's just a simple space shooter, and let me show you by playing it. I keep looking down, by the way, because my other monitor is down there. So I realize that's going to be super jarring, but I figured you should at least see me to say hello. So let me wait for it to build. So GameMaker is a really popular game engine created by Yo-Yo Games. It's been around forever. It has both non-coding / aka drag and drop capabilities, but also it uses scripting. So what I'm going to show is a little bit of scripting and maybe walk you through some basics of it. And then it built over here. So let me show you. Oh no! Okay. Pew pew pew. So what I've done is I've built this shooter, and again I downloaded the assets online. This is actually part of a tutorial. I think it might have been one even on Yo-Yo Games website, but I've added a few other enhancements to it. I've made it so that every time the thing gets hit, I've made it so every time the thing gets hit, it gets a little faster. So I've tried to make an interesting gameplay loop. And I've made other small adjustments. You can see the enemy health is up on the top of the gameplay window. So there's just like lots of little fun things in here. But basically what's nice is, I'll show you how to tweak things to get a, game that gets like progressively more intense as you play it. I also made it so that, it restarts the way it's supposed to. When either you die or when the enemy dies. So, boom. All right, enough of that. So, what is... I coughed into my hand. That's not good. By the way, if I cough, I'm getting over a little bit of a head cold, not the other scary thing that's out there right now. But, all right, so I'm going to show you this real quick. In GameMaker, and I'll bring up the room. All right, so in GameMaker, first of all, welcome to GameMaker. In GameMaker, you have a workspace. This is where you manipulate objects and get them to run. So, and this is the room editor, so I'm going to get rid of the room editor. I'm going to get rid of the room for a second. But on the right, you can see that there is a set of different types of objects. So in GameMaker, you have, first of all, sprites. The first most important thing is sprites, and what sprites are they are the images that you are going to use. They're basically your art assets. So most things start with building a sprite. And what you do is you turn sprites into objects, and what the distinction between a sprite and an object is that objects are things that, they have a sprite, and then, you control how big they are, things like that, and you add events to the sprite, and that makes them, function and do things and be game objects. So, think of a sprite as, I always like to use the Frankenstein's monster metaphor, where, you build, the art asset, and it is just sort of this lifeless thing that, looks like it could be something with life. And then you shoot events, you shoot code into it, and then that makes it actually live. So that's like the lightning that you're putting into it, the electricity. So this time I'm going to do some scripting to kind of show you and talk through what is going on in these different objects. So there's the enemy object, there's a laser, there's the pew pew, there's the enemy's pew pew, there's the explosion. So we can do lots of things. As you can see, there's lots of things you have to do to get even a simple game like that going. And what else is going on? There's a script. I can define a font. A font is how your letters are going to look in GameMaker. And then the last thing that we need to look at is rooms. Rooms are your, let me see. Where's my room menu? I will tell you, I'm a little rusty on GameMaker. So if I'm collapse dock panels. Okay, whoops. Room properties. There we go. There. Room. Layer. Aha. There we go. I just restore all of the. Cool. Like I said, just a head cold, nothing else. So the when I'm inside the room, rooms have layers, and those layers allow us to get things to interact in different ways, pass above, below, have backgrounds, have different layers, so we can get different different scrolling types, things like that. There are objects in our room. So a room is like the scene. It's a level. You can use a room to be a menu, to be your level of your game. You can use rooms to be lots of things. And, so if you're familiar with Unity at all, object is one-to-one, but room equals a scene if you were thinking in Unity terms. So that's what's going on there. Rooms have properties like the width and height of the room. That is, how. Right now we're just going to do it basically what is on the screen itself. So this is just a one-screen game, but you can create, width and height to create levels and things like that. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. Is we're going to make just something super simple. And what I'm going to do is tuck this off to the side. And I'm going to work from it, so don't be surprised. Again, it's been a while since I've done one of these. I'm going to use it as a code reference of sorts. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new... All right, I'm going to create... go into my start page for my new file. I'm going to create a new file in GameMaker. I'm going to use, so like I said, GameMaker allows you to use either drag and drop, which is visual scripting, or it allows you to use GameMaker language, which is its scripting language. I'm going to use GameMaker language for this just because I want to talk about the different coding and scripting aspects of it. GameMaker is really, it's a really great engine because it, with drag and drop, it's easy to get started right away. But when it's an engine that can grow with you. Full commercial products have been made in GameMaker. Hyperlight Drifter was made in GameMaker. Undertale was made in GameMaker. Nidhogg was made in GameMaker. Plus a lot of newer references than that, because some of those are like several years old at this point. But so I'm going to use GameMaker language here, just for the sake of. And then I'm going to save, do a project name. I'm going to call it shooter video demo, and then it's gonna get to making. All right, so now I've got shooter video demo, and then one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, so this is the resource folder. This is what the inside of a GameMaker project will look like on your desktop. So I'm going to copy, because like I said, I'm going to just remake the space shooter. So I'm going to go there, space shooter or shooter video demo. See, I've got that. And then I'm going to hit Control V, and that will add my resources. And so the resources are going to be, where like I've got some. So these are called Kenney Space Shooter assets. Again, this is from one of the basic GameMaker tutorials. So thank you, Kenney, for these awesome resources. I will use them proudly for this video. But so I've copied those over, and those are going to be what I'm going to really work from here, so that I'm not making all new assets. So right now there's nothing in my project, and that's really a byproduct of us just starting out. So let's make some stuff, shall we? So I'm going to right click on, so over here in the resources window, this is a list of everything in your project. So what I'm going to do, so you notice we have a room by default, and if we go to this room, it's not a whole lot of anything right now, and that's okay because we're going to fill it with stuff. But it's just like a black screen. We have two layers. We have a instances layer, and we have a background layer. So what we can do is because we're going to make a space shooter, let's populate the background layer. So if I go into my room, expand this, double click room 0, I can see my room, instances and background. If I click my background layer, I can go down to background layer properties, and then where it says no sprite, well, let's load a sprite. All right, so we're going to make our first sprite, and it's going to be the background. So I'm going to go over here to resources, and then I'm going to right click it, and I'm going to create sprite. So I create sprite, and this is what it looks like when you are going to create a sprite. Now, I'm not going to do much with animation right now. This is just like a simple coding tutorial. You can go check out. In GameMaker 2, they've added a lot of really great things. GameMaker always had an internal drawing tool, but it wasn't that great, and now the internal drawing tools are really awesome. There's a lot you can do with them. So if just to take a look at that, if we go to edit image, the biggest thing that they added, I mean, there are some great tools here, but the biggest thing that they added is that you have layers now. So you get the benefit of it having like a, more professional, visual editor feel because you have that even just the layers tab is super huge. So this gives you this is actually a really pretty good sprite editor. So I'm going to, again, instead, I'm going to import here. And I'm going to go into Shooter Video Demo. And I'm going to go to Resources, Backgrounds. And I have night, sky, night, star, Milky Way texture. So I'm going to import that. Importing files to a sprite is not an undoable action. Do I want to continue? Yes, that's fine. And we're going to let it go. Not responding for some reason. Uh-oh. Okay, perfect. So we are going to let it catch up. What are you doing, buddy? All right. I don't know why it's being like this, but here we go. All right. So it did that. It imported it. Great. I'm going to click out of this sprite, and it's going to go away. So we're going to go back to our room. By the way, any workspace, so the sprite editor, the workspace, which is where we, edit things in our project, and then the room are all tabbed up here. So I'm going to go back to my room, and I'm going to, under my background layer properties, which is over here, I'm going to click No Sprite, and I'm going to bring in this sprite, and there we go. So now we have space. All right, great. It's already looking better. Give me the ear. So now we want there to be some stuff to do here. And in order to do that, we need to add more sprites. So again, adding sprites is really like the big step in to get us started when we use GameMaker. So I'm going to go to Sprites again, right-click. In our Resources window, I'm going to create another sprite, and I'm going to import again. And this one I'm going to import is going to go to Kenney. Going to go to PNG for Kenney. And then I'm going to go, okay, so I have this choice of spaceships. I'm going to be different because the last time I think I used this one because red's my favorite color, but this time I'm going to use this one just for the sake of being different. So we're going to put in this guy and this. Yes, we're good. Something I haven't been doing, and I'm going to correct myself right away, is I've not been properly naming stuff. And that is very bad because you want to name things so that you can properly refer to them when you're scripting later. So I'm going to call this SPR player ship. So I want to put SPR in the beginning because I want it to be distinguishable as like this is the player's ship. So cool. And then I'm going to go back and rename my background as background. So once this, so it's like auto saving. That's why it's taking a little while. Okay. So I'm going to double click that, rename it background. Let it do its autosave thing. Now I'm going to load a few more sprites. I'm going to create sprite. I'm going to import, and I want an enemy ship. There's enemies. What looks sinister enough? I used this guy last time. Well, actually I used the gray one last time, but this time I'm going to use green. And then because they're green, I'm going to make this sort of alien buggy looking one. All right, so then again, just like with the player, I'm going to start that with SPR. Now you want to use that prefix SPR, or I mean, you want it doesn't have to be SPR, but the reason I'm using those 3 letters is because that is shorthand for sprite, and it's good to have some sort of naming convention like that, especially in a program like this where you have, so like we're going to make a sprite for the enemy ship, but then we're going to make an object called enemy ship. The object is going to be the sprite is just, remember, sprite is just the one that has the art only. The object is the one that has the actual logic and gameplay embedded in it. Again, I'm going to use Unity as an example. Think about like when you import a model into Unity versus when you create a prefab in Unity. That's what objects are in GameMaker. So we want to distinguish those 2 things. So that's why this is SPR, enemy ship, and the object version will be OBJ enemy ship. So there we go. We've created that, and I'm gonna keep plugging away. Let it autosave. So I'm going to create another sprite. I know this repetitive stuff is exactly what you signed up for when you got into game making. Let's see. Lasers. Here we go. All right. So this will be player laser. I'm going to use this laser, like laser blue. This looks pretty cool. Okay, yes, I want to do the thing. This one's kind of fun. It has some nice transparency to it. And then I'm going to do SPR player laser. And then X. Let it autosave. And then create sprite. And then I'm going to do, should they be red? They have green ships. Let's do red. Why not? The attack of the Christmas monsters. SPR. And a laser. That'll be a nice contrast. Okay. And then let me see if I can remember. This is the part I'm gonna create sprite. And then we're gonna call this SPR explosion. And then we're going to bring in, no, not the sprite sheet, PNG, effects, fire. Where is it? Damage. No. Sprite sheet vector bonus. Oh, I had an explosion somewhere. Let me see. Resources, music, explosion art. There you are, explosion art. Yes. And then what I want to do, now this is the part that you're going to have to give me a second. I want to make, so I'm going to make my center the middle center, and that's important because you want to, like, that's going to affect how objects move. In fact, now that I think about it, what did I do for all of these? Oh, yeah, okay. So I'm going to go back to my different objects, make all of them middle center. Did I even do that for bottom center? Okay. So the lasers are bottom center because of where they're going to spawn. So we want them to spawn, you know, like the origin point should be down here. So we want them to spawn that way. And enemy laser. Should also be bottom center. And actually, edit image. I'm going to mirror this image. I'm going to select this. So I'm going to do some editing here. I brought up my sprite editor. I'm going to use the marquee tool to do this, to add the image, and then I'm going to, oh, how do I do this? Rotate brush tool. So I use the rotate tool. So let me do that slowly again. All right, so first I double clicked in here. I brought up my, I brought up this. I went to edit image. That popped up my sprite editor. I used the marquee tool. And then I went to rotate brush tool, and that brought up this interface. If I hold down shift, it locks to 45-degree angles, and then it flipped around, and oops. I think I need to hit enter. Damn it. Why are you not working? What the heck? Okay, what is going on here? All right, I'm gonna undo some of this. Acting a little goofy. All right, let's try this again. Ah, don't you just love trying to remember the exact workflow of a tool you haven't used in a while? So you could have sworn I think I know what I'm going to do. Okay, so that was the brush. I'm going to add a new layer, and then I'm going to draw okay, and then I'm going to delete that layer, and now I've got it flipped over. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to get rid of this, and now I've got that. Okay, cool. Whoa. That was more complicated than I wanted it to be. Thank you for bearing with me on that. Okay, so we've got all of these. Good. I'm going to go back to my sprite editor for explosion, and let's see how image break into sprite. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick break. I'm